Going out to the world is what we're calling our Writers Drinking Coffee podcast here. This is a podcast based on writers sitting around drinking coffee and or wine, spirits, talking about anything and everything. We may use explicit language. We'll almost certainly drop the occasional F-bomb, but none of that is the point or the drive of the content, so please consider us PG-13. There will be rants and raves and occasional readings. There will be very conflicting creative advice driven by many, many different points of view. Your hosts today are Chaz Brinchley and me, Jeannie Warner. This is episode
22,
live from World Fantasy Con with Caitlin Blaisdell. Welcome, Caitlin.
Thank you, Jeannie.
Caitlin is an agent for Liza Dawson Associates, and we invited her here. She is actually Chaz's agent in America. Is that correct?
That's right.
Yep.
So how did you two crazy kids meet?
I had a previous British agent who worked with Caitlin as their American sub-agent. Is this complicated? I write a book, I send it to my British agent. My British agent does a deal in the UK for British and Commonwealth rights, but American deals are different, so she sends it to the American sub-agent who then sells it to American publishers. Hopefully is how it's supposed to work, I think.
That's right, and it totally worked with you.
It did.
So,
It's been lovely.
Those wonderful fantasy novels set in Palestine, and
that's right. You did Outremer first. Didn't you?
That's what's
Excellent. Well, I'm going to ask kind of the beginner ones for a lot of people because you're our first agent that has come and joined us here. So the kindergarten questions, I'm sorry, they're going to come up here. How did you become an agent? What is that? What does an agent do? Let's start what an agent does for people.
Well, I became an agent because first I was an editor, and that's actually a fairly common path. And then editors these days have too much to do. They can't read everything that gets sent to them. So the agent is sort of a filter in a way. So we get submissions from anyone who wants to write a book, and we find the ones that we think we can sell, that we really love, and we take those writers on as clients. I'm what's known as sort of an editorial agent, so I do a lot of editorial work with my clients.
She's brutal.
Beautiful.
And I'll let that pass. And then...
No, actually, that was a compliment. It really was. So,
and then we turn around and sell it to editors. And then once the sale is done, then we negotiate the contract. And then we just sort of keep an eye on the book. Like, you make sure the cover is good and the copy is good.
Well, who decides on the cover? I guess tell us, how does that work?
Can I backpedal?
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll get on to covers. So I'm just... The first thing you said about the role of an agent is that you act as a filter for the publishers. Do you think that's your first priority? Because it didn't used to be so. Agents in the traditional model, as far as I remember and or understand it.
When I was a boy, sorry.
I'm sorry?
When I was a boy.
I have been in this business a very long time. Yeah. I sold my first stories in the 70s. But an agent was basically on the author's side. They were there to represent the author in the negotiations and the relationship between the author and the publisher. They weren't, in those days, as far as I understood it at the time, acting as a sort of filtration service to make sure that the worst stuff didn't reach the publishers.
Maybe I'm just thinking that way because here we are at a convention and there's editors and writers. And of course, I'm the advocate for the writer. And that comes on with sort of, only taking on books that I love. Yeah. But, once upon a time, the editors would be reading also. Yes. I think they don't do that anymore.
No, I think that's the point, is that one of the major changes that has overswept the industry in my lifetime is that agents do actually both these things, the filtration thing and the editorial role. These are both relatively new.
I guess that's right. I mean, there are fewer editors.
Yep.
You know, publishers keep shrinking their
Yes.
editorial staff. And now they have to spend a lot of time on things like social media.
Mm-hmm.
They're in meetings all the time. They never sit at their desk and read a book. I mean, I certainly never did that when I was an editor.
And I presume that's why they don't really accept unsolicited manuscripts anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Because
They don't have time to read all the things the agents send them, which is why it's important as an agent to have relationships with the editors and know what they're looking for, and for them there to be trust, so that if I send something, you know, they're going to be like, yeah, I'm going to look at this because, you know, Caitlin's not going to waste my time.
Yeah,
Right.
So.
When I was back in the 90s, I was on a radio thing with an agent who later became my agent, but it was Darley. And I asked him how many manuscripts he was sent a year, and he said about 1,000. And of those, how many would he actually take on as clients? He said maybe half a dozen. And of those, how many would he actually sell? He said maybe 2 or 3 in a good year. It was that kind of relationship then, that kind of distortion. And I suspect it's worse. How many manuscripts do you get sent a year? Do you count?
Well, I only accept query letters, not manuscripts.
Okay, right.
But gosh, I don't know, like maybe 20 letters a day. And
Okay.
it fluctuates. I mean,
Yeah.
if somebody puts, like, this will probably generate more
Yes,
submissions.
it will. I'm sorry about that. But they'll all be magic and wonderful, and you'll take them all on. Are you listening out there, our writers?
that's right. You'll have to go through us to get to her.
Maybe we could be a filtration system for
Yeah,
you.
Well,
I
let
know,
me, you brought up numbers, so let me ask, and this may be an industry sort of question. In America, it feels like there's fewer people reading because there's some of the big bookstores are closing, and I don't know, but they're saying fewer people read a book in a day. Are there more or fewer people writing them? Don't laugh. You know what I'm doing.
No,
Are there more manuscripts
because
now?
You got the fewer right. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was looking at you the whole time. I stuck my tongue out at him. But do you feel like you get more than you got 10 years ago? Less? About the same?
I keep a very low profile online, partly to keep the submissions down. I would really rather get submissions from people who have done their research, who have said, I love Charlie Strauss's books or Chaz Brenchley's books, and who is their agent? I mean, or who have gone to Clarion or have some credential, because, it's just a higher yield of good
Sure.
projects. So it just fluctuates depending on,
Right.
how high my profile is.
Do you know how easy it is for random writer to find out who Charlie Strauss's agent is?
Dead easy? I'm sorry, I can answer
Yeah,
this
no,
one.
no,
I am a
yes.
Google queen.
Yeah.
When I was first starting, that's who you do, is you guys say, this is my author, and you can actually type in Google, who is Charlie Strauss's American agent?
Right.
And somewhere there's a website where it'll tell you.
And before that, you would go to the bookstore and open up one of the books, and
Yeah.
you're usually in the acknowledgments.
Right.
As the agent. If the author knows,
So
what protocol is.
I'm just saying, is she in your acknowledgments?
I kind of stopped doing acknowledgements so much.
You mean thing.
No. It was a thing that happened. I used to write. I used to enjoy all the stuff that fits around a book. Sort of writing cover copy and the dedication, and then the page afterwards there was acknowledgements and da-da-da-da-da. And then, this is back in the way early days when I was writing thrillers and mysteries. And a colleague said, Chaz, the only thing about your books is that I read them and they are so suspenseful, and I get all tense and worked up, and I hit the end. And then suddenly there's this page of stuff that is unrelated to the actual text of the book, and it breaks the mood. I don't get the slow ride down from a book that I want. It's such an intense experience, and then suddenly there's this thing. And I said, so you're suggesting that it should go in the front. And he said, yes, I think I am. And I tried that for a little bit.
So a bigger dedication, a smaller acknowledgement at the end? Or?
It was what he was proposing was moving the whole acknowledgements thing to the front rather than the back of the book.
Oh.
I tried that, but it seemed odd. And I kind of stopped doing it. So people have gone unacknowledged.
Should he write acknowledgements?
Should I write acknowledgements?
It's the first thing I look at in a book. It's like gossip, like, who's this person's, agent?
Right. Yeah,
and you can sort of tell by how they write it, like, whether they really have a good relationship with their agent or not.
Are they
and their editor, and,
Is there poaching?
I was just going to ask that. Do you actually poach clients? Deliberately, consciously?
I don't poach, no.
Right.
I mean,
is there
it's
poaching?
a very small business.
Yeah.
I would not like...
I love Charlie Strauss. I would love to be, so I can see that,
It's a small business. I mean, I know all the people I would be taking them from, so no, I don't do that.
You don't do that. Do other people do that? Have you been poached from?
No, I don't think so. I think, people leave.
Do people leave? Of course. People
and then they go somewhere else.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think anyone's ever done that to me. I think because I do so much editorial work with a client, like, we have a relationship.
Yeah.
It's not just like, calling and saying, I've sold this or that or whatever. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you say you started off as an editor.
I did at HarperCollins.
And then
what
was the freelance? Where was that?
Why did I change?
Yes. Yeah.
It was hard. I had been working for so long to become an editor. Like really, it was my dream. But then, honestly, I had kids and I just needed a more flexible job. I mean, being an editor sucks. You're working, 60 hours a week. You're going to conferences. You're reading on the weekends, and
I mean, those 60 hours don't include the reading.
Right. I mean, and they don't pay a lot, so they make it easy for you to leave. And
So for everybody who is out there thinking, I totally want to be an editor and read everything.
Yeah.
No, that's not what it's about. I mean, I think the unique thing about being the editor is that you're the one in the room with the art director or with the copy director or with the marketing people. So, I had to get used to giving up that power.
Right. Did you enjoy it when you had it?
Yeah, it was great when everything went well. But, how often does that happen? And gosh, every time you have a meeting, right, for one of your books, you're sitting through like 10 or 12 other books that are not yours.
Yeah.
So it's a huge time sink.
Sure.
Oh my gosh. So I work in business and IT security, and we have so many meetings, and I almost want to say, is this a discussion meeting or a decision meeting? Because status meetings suck.
Right. And there's a lot of that in every business. Books are no exception.
Okay, I don't want to be an editor anymore.
Don't.
Be a writer,
And but it was hard to change to being an agent, but I love it. I mean, it's actually better than being an editor because when you're an editor, you get pigeonholed very quickly. Like you can only do this kind of book. Like I could never now. I do adult science fiction and fantasy. I do YA and middle grade, and nobody can do that as an editor. They're entirely different publishing.
Yeah.
And I can, I've done mystery. I do romance. I can do, anything I want. I've done nonfiction when I've not much, but some writing books, some parenting books, some
how to destroy your children in 18 easy lessons.
That kind of thing. Yes.
I now want to write one.
How to destroy other people's children.
Oh, yes. Here, from favorite Aunt Jeannie. So what's the process like? So you got a query letter, from this. I guess it wouldn't be, you didn't get queried from Chaz because you just got him.
I got his books.
Walk it through the process of, it's not Charlie Strauss, but Charlie sends you his little brother and says, hey, my brother, sorry, Charlie, I don't know your brother's name, but can you give it a read?
So usually what I do if someone has no credentials is just ask to see 50 pages and a synopsis. I guess in old days it was actual paper, so it mattered that it was smaller and easier to mail. Now I do that just not to get their hopes up too much, you know.
Yeah.
There's no real reason. I could always ask for the full. And then, you look at it and it's often, very quick to sort of say, no, this person is not ready. Their writing is not at the right level. And then you pass. If there's something there that, is a spark, or you really, like something about it, then you say, can I see the next project? So that's really a meaningful thing when an agent does that, not just something you're sort of saying to make them feel better. And then if I like the 50 pages, then I ask to see the full manuscript. And then, the good and bad thing about being an agent is that, there's this very clear criteria. Do I think I can sell it?
Yeah.
And sometimes I read something and I think it's real, shows so much talent, or, it's really impressive, but I can't imagine selling it. So I have to pass, right? I mean, there's no...
So tell me on that. I think that's an interesting area. Are there trends that you have to kind of go in? She's giving me this look.
Of course there are trends.
What are some of the current trends then? Tell us.
People are, and so
because
many
urban
people,
supernatural seems to be going crazy. And...
It does?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's all over the bookstores. You walk in and there's shelves and shelves of it.
Like what do you mean by that?
I mean the urban supernatural, vampires, things in the streets, magic. Starting from Charles DeLint started something, and then...
Yeah, but...
See, that's...
Everything from Anita Blake, Laurel Hamilton.
You're talking about urban fantasy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I would, it's, for me, I can't sell any new urban fantasy.
Ah, okay.
The only people who sell now are the established bestsellers. So like the Jim Butcher or the Charlene Harris, the Laurel Hamilton. But no, like a new person, it's almost impossible to break them out.
Okay.
I mean, the editors will sort of sigh and be like, no, I love it, but I just can't, our sales force won't be able to sell it.
Have we gotten through the zombie wave yet? Because
that was a long wave. I really don't like zombies. I don't represent any zombie books.
Deliberately?
Well,
or will you just never offer the brilliant one?
It makes me cringe when I read the manuscript, and I'm sure that they're really good, and other people have made a lot of money there, but not me.
I think you have to love a zombie to really be able to represent a zombie. That would make sense.
That's absolutely true.
So
what is the upcoming thing as far as you think?
Well, right now, finally horror is coming back a little bit.
Yep.
Tor has their new imprint, the Nightfire imprint. So that, I think, is a sign that they think that it's coming back. It's never totally went away, but it was sort of disguised, called dark fantasy.
Yep. Hello, I wrote some dark fantasy.
Yes.
And also, finally, chick lit is coming back, except now it's called rom-com, romantic comedy. So they've rebranded it. It's still, everybody is looking for diverse voices, which is great, within both horror and rom-com. And
now, is it just the voice of the person writing it, or is it also different points of view and perspectives of characters, or?
Well, it's very much a moment where people believe in own voices. So yeah, you have to actually own the voice. You can't just use your imagination right now.
Right.
That's a.
There was our 20-something that came in and talked a lot about the authenticity of saying, if you're not a gay female and you're a straight white male, the odds of your being able to write a credible gay female are very, very small.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and there are always exceptions, but
yeah.
Right. So, so what else? People are always hungry for big stories. So like big space operas and big epic fantasy. People are moving away from the really dark, grim fantasy.
Oh, you think grimdark is on its way out?
Yeah. Well, no, I mean the bestsellers.
The bestsellers will continue to sell.
Right, but people are moving away from that. Yes.
Okay.
Now, we had in the last episode chatted with Brennan, who was talking about
Marie Brennan,
right? Fabulous writer. Was talking about many of them are looking for it seemed for a while everyone wanted series. Are they still looking for series, or are they looking more for standalones now? Jonathan Norrell and Mr. Strange was a big standalone smash, for instance.
I'm sure they would have loved to make that into a series if she had.
They made it into a TV series,
right,
so
yeah. They would have been happy to have more books in that universe. So I would say that publishers want to have it both ways. It's very hard to write in the genre. I mean, you do all that work creating the world, and and so people want to deepen it and keep. Writers certainly want to keep writing to do series. But publishers are reluctant to make a big financial commitment. I mean, if the first book doesn't do well, then,
I do not.
Then.
So is this a flexible thing, sort of like, we'd love your standalone. Oh, that sold really well. You got another one for you? Is that
can we have it in 2 months, please?
Right.
So, ideally, I think you want to have it both ways. You want to write a book that has a solid ending, where people can be satisfied.
Right.
But you want to have enough threads that it can be picked up and you can write more in the world if it sells.
That makes a lot of sense. So are there other trends that are interesting that you've loved? You mentioned YA. Where's YA going?
YA is crowded. For so long, the pie was growing, like it was, and there was room for so many new people. And then, of course, what happens, editors, they like to buy books. So they bought lots of YA, and they did a lot of 3-book deals. And then all of a sudden, the market was too full and things stopped selling. And and then I think, YA authors tend to be kind of prolific. So you've got your, I don't know how many, say 10 bestsellers, and they can all write 2 books a year, and that's 20 new YA books a year, and that's probably enough for most kids, right? They don't need more than that. So, it's a fight. So YA can be a heartbreaker as an agent right now, as can middle grade. Same thing.
Same general idea. That makes sense.
Right. And especially with middle grade, like, the kids age out of it, like, 8 to 12, and then they're done. And then you've got a new batch of kids, and they have all, 30 Rick Riordan books to read and all the Harry Potter. And that's enough for most kids. My kids know, they would, they get
raise them properly.
Yes, that's right. They're good readers.
All right, let me throw a dream out there and ask a hypothetical question. Chaz wrote Desdemona, which is a magnificent book. What if somebody who'd read it in Hollywood came and said, I think we should totally make a insert movie, TV show, Netflix show out of this? How does that work? Do they come to you? Where does the...
Yeah, they do. They come to me. And then, it varies. In some cases, we'll have a co-agent, is what it's called. So someone who represents for TV and film. Already in place, and then I send, the interested person to the co-agent. Do
you have a partnership with different co-agents that way? Is that how it works?
It's on a project by project basis. Right. So we don't, we see many different agents. Mostly it's for TV now, for either a series or for sort of what they used to call a mini-series.
Is there a difference? As I've been looking at, I consume a lot of TV via Netflix these days, and they have their own, and Amazon, I went and listened to Neil Gaiman talk about how he was involved in doing Good Omens as for a mini-series. Is that a new route to market? Are those new people coming to you, or are they kind of some of the same old people?
Well, when I was growing up, right, there were 3 channels. There are a ton of channels, and they're all looking for content. So it's really an explosion.
So if there's then a separate set of agents, if somebody started and said maybe they weren't a novel sort of thinker, but they were a screenwriter thinker, are there specific screenwriter agents then that they want to look at?
Yes, screenwriting is a whole different business. Okay. They would, I don't handle screenplays and a screen play agent wouldn't handle a novel. So they
That
would.
makes sense. Different functions.
Yeah.
Totally.
Cool. I just wanted the world to know that I think Desdemona should totally be a series on Netflix. So he's blushing. It's awesome.
Oh, shut up.
So what else? You come to World Fantasy Con. Do you do panels? Do you chat along?
I'm not doing a panel this time. I think the timing didn't work out. But no, mostly I meet with clients like Chaz. And then I meet with editors who, don't live in New York, so I don't see there.
If you wanted to be an agent, if I wanted to become an agent, do I have to move to New York, or is it just helpful?
It's just helpful. You don't have to anymore. Okay. I mean, you can, like one of our agents, Hannah Bowman, she was in New York, and then her husband got a job, and now she's in Los Angeles, which is actually really useful in terms of the film TV rights for us.
Absolutely.
But even she has to come back to New York every 6 months and do a round of meetings to sort of, stay close to the editors.
Right. Are most of the major publishing companies still on the East Coast, or is there anything based out here on the West Coast?
There's Chronicle. They're based, I think, definitely the West Coast. I'm not sure where. They're a children's book publisher. They do the Ivy and Bean series that we represent. No, it's mostly New York, and then some of the smaller publishers can be anywhere.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
As an agent, do you work through the things like, I know of Bookview Cafe, that's where I've found a few different authors of If You Like This. I have found, for instance, their referrals seem to be more consistently useful to me than Amazon's random, if you like this, you like
this.
this.
The referrals to Bookview Cafe are coming from 50 or 60 very well-read writers,
right,
rather than an algorithm.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I know about it because of Chaz, but no, I haven't done any business with them otherwise.
What advice would you give to anybody who thinks to themselves they might want to be an agent one day?
To have a spouse with health insurance would be very helpful. I mean, we work on a commission basis. If you work for a big agency like, Trident or CAA or something, then I think it's more traditional. But, we're earning commission. So, if you eat what you kill, kind of,
Now, that's beautiful. I was going to say, do you take part in any of those? I've seen pitch wars out there. Have you ever done any of the...
I've done that, yes.
Is that fun?
Well, I've never gotten a client from doing that.
Right.
But, and it's... it seems like if there's something good, there are a dozen people jump on it at once. So it's not like a great source for getting clients.
So as we're getting close to the half-hour mark here, what advice would you give to, we have a lot of people that we are constantly saying, anybody can write.
That's right.
Anybody can write a story. Everybody's got probably even more stories than they think they have. What would you say to these aspiring writers out there of any type?
I feel like you have to write because you love writing. You should not be writing because you think it would be so amazing to see your name on a book and have the book in the bookstores, because that's really hard. I mean, there's so many great publishers that aren't, great writers that aren't published. I think that one of the great things about being in a community, whether it's science fiction and fantasy or mystery or romance, is that you do have conferences like this that you can go to, and you can meet other people and, be part of a group that really loves it. And so you can get the pleasure of the actual writing, and then you can get that community because, it's a tough business being published. And if that's all you're in it for, then it's going to be hard.
There's a piece of that Catherine Carr said to us, if you want to decide if you want to be a novelist or whether you actually want to be a writer, because a novelist wants to have a book they can hold up to their family and say, I published a book. Whereas writers just, they didn't like that one. I got another one here.
Right. Yeah, it's it's wonderful and it's terrible and it's
It's mostly terrible.
I can see that. Okay.
Yes. Further to what Kit said, there was a review once by Stephen Spender, the poet, of a memoir by another poet who shall remain nameless. And Spender said of this book, Mr. X says many times in his book that he always wanted to be a poet. He never says that he wanted to write a poem. And I think that is...
There you go.
Harsh.
Harsh. True.
It's true.
I
mean, you do, when you go to a conference, there are always the people who are asking you all the questions about the sub-rights and the copy and everything, and you're always like, well, what are you writing? And they don't really have anything to say.
We will put links to many of the interesting things that we mentioned on our website, which is www.writersdrinkingcoffee.com. You can also find us on Facebook or Twitter. We love email if anybody ever wants to write our email. You've been listening to Writers Drinking Coffee, a labor of love and enthusiasm put together by the host. Our main web support magic is brought to you by Deirdre McGaffey-Schween, and our sound engineer and backup web spider is Dave Welsh. Our intro music is Pretty Maid Milking a Cow, and our exit music is Breakfast with a Morning Person, both by Michael Engberg. You can hear more from Michael Engberg on manyhatsmusic.com. Our podcast sponsor is Jackal Designs, enabling you all to buy cool WDC swag, including the latest Live at Mally's recorded on the world's prettiest microphone. Pick one up today. That'd be great.